Welcome, everyone, to this solemn day of observance. My name is Arthur Samuelson. I'm the program director at the Rowe Conference Center, and we are proud and honored to be able to host this. This is our seventh annual Memorial Day observance. Um, in better days, we were able to do it in person at our beautiful retreat center in Western Massachusetts. Um, but for this year and last year, of course, we have had to move everything online, which may make it easier for some of you to actually participate. I recognize a lot of faces and names here. So welcome everyone, and welcome for those of you who are coming here for the first time. Let me just tell you quickly about the Rowe Center and why we do this, and then I will introduce Ed and we'll get started. The Rose Center was founded in 1924 as a youth camp, and since 1974, in addition to youth camps, we've been running adult summer camps as well as weekend workshops on spirituality, personal growth, all the creative arts, nature, and social change, all things that we think go into helping people live fulfilling lives. We have made a special commitment to our veterans, and people often ask me why that is, since I think it would be fair to say that we come from an anti-war place in many of the programming that we do. And the reason is because there's no one who knows about war better and more honestly than those who've been through one, and that those of us who have sent and will in the future send people into harm's way need to know what exactly we are doing. And then we need to help those who have been through that experience reintegrate back into society and be part of a general healing of which we need to be a part as well, those of us who have not served. So we feel that it is not just an honor, but actually a duty to be able to do this. As I was preparing for today, I was looking online at several articles that have been written about Memorial Day, and I see that often every year there's a quandary as to how do you greet somebody on Memorial Day? Do you say Happy Memorial Day, which doesn't seem right? And how does the fact that people look at this as a day of barbecues and going to sales, how does that sit with what the purpose of Memorial Day is? Um, we, we of course, in this program, our purpose here is to bring back the original meaning of Memorial Day, which is to remember those who've fallen. So thank you all for joining us. I hope next year at this time that you'll be able to join us in person at our beautiful retreat center in Western Massachusetts. And if not, but not just for that program, for our other programs as well. Ed and Kate have been teaching at Rowe for many, many years. Actually, Ed was teaching there before I got there, and I've been there 9 years. Ed is an internationally recognized educator, author, and expert on the military veterans, PTSD, Vietnam, and the psychology, spirituality, and history of global trauma, warrior traditions, and military related issues. For 4 decades, he's conducted trainings, retreats, and workshops across the country and overseas in major Department of Defense and Veterans Administration facilities at colleges, universities, hospitals, healthcare, community centers across the country and overseas. Um, Along with Kate, Ed co-founded the nonprofit Soldier's Heart with that for 13 years, where he served as its director for 13 years. He now consults internationally on these issues. In addition to his book, War and the Soul, Ed is the author of the book Sacred Mountain, The Practices of Dream Healing, Wild Beasts and the Wandering Souls, and Warriors Return, um, as well as poetry collections, The Bull Awakening and The Golden Tortoise. Ed will introduce Kate and Charlie um, um, and Mr. Marks. And why don't we take it away? Thank you. Thank you, Ed, for doing this every year with us.
Good morning, greetings and blessings to everyone. Thank you, Dave. Ah, Communications break down in all kinds of ways. We all know that. We are honored to be with you. I also want to thank Arthur Samuelson and FIA and Rose Center for sponsoring us and being in partnership and collaboration all these years for holistic healing of our military veterans and families, and also all of the wonderful holistic programs that Roe offers for all of us for all kinds of life growth issues and challenges. So blessings on Roe, and thank you for continuing to sponsor us in our programming. So as Arthur shared, this is our eighth Memorial Day uh, in a row that we're offering this programming through Row. And very briefly, Arthur shared some of our purpose today. I want to not only emphasize what Arthur said about our responsibilities to our military and warriors and our veterans in bringing everyone home and reuniting our fragmented country, because veterans and civilians are extraordinarily alienated, isolated from each other, and don't help each other in gaining wisdom from our military experiences and from the impact of war and military service. And we need to bring everyone together into one united effort to understand war, heal from it, and bring our country together uh, across all of its terrible splits and alienation. So we work on that through programs like this. And also, we have this extraordinarily important key purpose. Life, of course, is sacred. The taking of life is a sacred act. Warriors are in a spiritual condition. Warfare is actually a sacred condition. It has been treated as sacred and religious uh, throughout history and through many, many cultures through all times. We treat it that way, and honoring Memorial Day this way, we honor Veterans Day this way as well, by gathering in sacred ceremony together to restore the sacred dimensions of this holiday to our citizenry, to our nation, especially to our warriors, veterans, and active duty people and their families who have sacrificed so much over this difficult cause. So today we are honored to be with you to help make Memorial Day sacred again, to resacralize it for all of us. And in this little way, we also hope and trust it will spread, and others are doing this elsewhere around the country and around the world. So we will get, this will be experiential. We'll have teaching and experiences together as we go through our ceremony for the next 3 hours. I do want to briefly introduce our other co-facilitators today. We have a full team. Arthur is program director of Row and has been our generous host for since he's been working there. I didn't help hire him, but we enjoyed Roe before we got there. Thank you, Arthur. And Kate Dahlstedt is my life partner, my wife, and wonderful partner in this work. Kate was co-founder and co-director of Soldier's Heart, and Kate has been specializing not only working with veterans, but especially women veterans and military families. So Kate has this specialization as well as the general work. Charlie Pacello is also on our board of directors for Soldier's Heart and has the dubious distinction of being our last president of the board of directors, helping Soldier's Heart thrive and also passing on the legacy. Charlie is an Air Force veteran. He's a lieutenant in the Air Force who's on our nuclear weapons teams, and he may share that as we go along. So Charlie saw Holocaust. Luckily, blessedly, he didn't have to push a button, but he contemplated what that would be like and his responsibility in it. So Charlie has been blessings upon you, Charlie, to hell and back in his military service. And Charlie is a veteran healer, a certified life coach, yoga teacher, a fantastic theater actor and director and uses those thespian skills as well in healing our warriors. So Charlie has become one of our leading veteran healing guides, carrying on our holistic legacy. So again, thank you to you, Charlie. And we are very happy that our friend and brother and colleague Frederick Marks is here. Frederick is the founder director of, sorry, somebody's trying to get in. I'm being interrupted. Frederick is the founder and director, producer of Warrior Films. He's probably his best known film that you might have hopefully seen is Hoop Dreams, but Frederick has done many dreams about initiation, rites of passage, men's issues, veteran issues, and he will be sharing some links for his upcoming films on veteran healing and return. So we're glad you're here, Frederick. Frederick also is having a gathering this evening, and we'll attend that, and you're all invited there as well. And maybe you can put that in the link, Frederick, about how people can join the gathering tonight. So we're all here to share a little of what we have in our life work in healing our warriors, bringing resolution and peacemaking to our military and war experiences, and bringing us all together again into one family, one community. And we're going to jump in today and do that together. So I hope you all received the invitational letter for preparation for today. So we did invite everybody to build an altar for the day. If you don't have one regularly, at least have one for today's ceremony. And we invited you to have a candle on it and to bring photographs and memorabilia, which we will be using through the day. But for now, if you've got your candle on your altar, we invite you to, together with us, light your candle, take 3 deep breaths, fill your whole torso, your lungs, your heart space, your diaphragm, all the way down to your pelvis with clean, clear, healing air. And feel yourself really present here today. Be focused on the purpose of this day. We are commemorating, we are memorializing, we are giving support to the souls of those who have sacrificed and fallen in wars, in the immediate past, in the distant past, all around the world, and from the beginning of time till now. This is an American holiday in particular, but this issue is not American. This issue is worldwide. And all of us, brothers and sisters, have been through about 5,000 years of more or less continuous warfare since the beginning of Western urban civilization, with very little break in between. So we are all the inheritors of transgenerational trauma, not just American, but worldwide. And we all have to face that together, grieve it together, realize what it's done to all of us, step into the wound together, and that will give us the love and the wisdom and the compassion to work toward healing it for each other, for our country, and for our world. So with that prayer, we are in sacred Memorial Day space together. Please light your candle, or in any way you need to, feel yourself in kairos, in sacred time and space now. War and warfare and participating in it, as we said, is a sacred arena. Geronimo was a great war chief, we all know that, and medicine man. He said, for his people, from the moment warfare begins, everything takes on a religious dimension. When we are in ultimate concerns, life and death, good and evil, right now, right here at this moment, we are in sacred space, and we are participating in the preserving or the taking of life. So we are in ultimate concerns, and we treat these events this way, and we restore the sense of the ultimate. And so Kate will open us with actually a warrior prayer. Kate will share the prayer and then we'll tell the story. This is the peace prayer of St. Francis, which you may be surprised if you don't know the story to know that this is a warrior prayer. And we will find out how and why.
The prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine One, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kate. I want to briefly share the story of this poem, this prayer, where it comes from, how it comes to us, and the key lesson to it, because we need to use this lesson today and whenever we contemplate war and military service. We all have heard of St. Francis and what an extraordinary servant of peace and healing he was. Many of us may not know that St. Francis was actually a combat veteran. He, as a young man, at around age 20, around the year 1200, he did not want to take over the boring middle-class family business. So just like young men of all times and places, he went off to war. He signed up for his city-state to fight a neighboring city-state, and he was in combat for a year. He was taken prisoner. He became, in the year 1200, prisoner of war. You can imagine how much deprivation and suffering he and the others went through during that time. Well, he was a POW for another full year before his family was able to ransom him out of captivity and bring him home. So after 2 years of 1200 war horrors, he came home and everybody said to him then, like we say now, you're home, it's over now, get on with life. Join the business. Of course he couldn't, and he did back then just what so many of our military are doing today. I don't fit in at home anymore, I'm going back to war. He signed up for a second combat deployment. He went away for another year of combat, and during that time, he collapsed in a terrible spiritual crisis, and he came home. And when he came home from that second collapse, that's when he swore off all worldly goods and worldly values, put on the pauper's robes, and became a servant of spirituality and peace for the rest of his life. He worked with the lepers, with the most impoverished people, with other traumatized warriors who became some of his first followers. And he rebuilt fallen holy places, and he confronted the Pope and political leaders of the time, and even the leaders of the crusade, the second crusade that was going on in his time. He confronted them to stop and truly live up to peace-loving and their spiritual values. They didn't stop, but he tried, and he had that courage, and he's left us this legacy. So Francis left us a legacy of the courage to work for peace and pray for peace and praise creation. And we have many of his prayers. However, he didn't write this prayer. This prayer was actually written on the back of a St. Francis prayer card during World War I. And it was found stuck into a Bible that a chaplain found lost in the mud and blood of the World War I trenches. The chaplain found the Bible in the card. He was very moved by the prayer, and so he had it translated into every language of every country fighting in World War I at that time, and passed out thousands of copies of the prayer. So that's how we actually have this prayer. It's in the spirit of St. Francis, and it was composed by an unknown soldier of World War I in the trenches with St. Francis's inspiration. So this beautiful peace prayer is actually a gift of two wounded, traumatized warriors, passing it on through history, and the lessons of the horrors of war that we need to come out with a transformative spiritual vision that transcends the horrors of war and gives us a much larger and more beautiful and meaningful code of living for all of us, and especially our wounded warriors and other victims of war to follow. So with this story and this prayer, we open our Memorial Day sacred ceremony. And we open with music as well. Everybody knows this song. We will play Where Have All the Flowers Gone? How appropriate to every Memorial Day celebration, honoring. And we'll play Pete Seeger's version, he's the one who wrote it for us. But please sing along if you're so moved, and let it touch your heart as it may have done in the old days and as we still need to do it today. Thea, please.
Hey, I got an old song. Maybe some of you might like to help me sing it. I'm going to ask my grandson, Tao Rodriguez, to come up here and help me. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Girls have picked them, every one. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the young girls gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young girls gone? Taken husbands, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young gone? The soldiers, the soldiers, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing.
Thank you, Fia. That song always pierces. I'm happy to share with you that Kate and I, for 20 years, have been leading healing and reconciliation journeys back to Vietnam. And the young Vietnamese who were not even alive during the war, who were only born in the 20s and 30s now, gather with us and they sing that song to us, to the visiting American veterans and civilians. They surround us with love and welcome and sing this to us and embrace us and say, keep coming here so we can heal you with our love. That's the purpose of our day today. So Charlie, please introduce us to our purpose and lead us into our sacred time.
Well, thank you, Ed. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with all of you on this very, very solemn day, and returning the sacredness to this, to what it means to memorialize those who have fallen and given their lives for us, for the freedoms that we take so for granted. As I was preparing for my teaching this morning, I was letting some family members know what I was doing, and they were like, "Well, what is Memorial Day?" And I was sharing with them what it was, and actually it was my brother, and I love him. And he says, "Well, I thought Memorial Day was to honor everybody who had died." And I said, "No, we honor those who have given their lives for us so that we can live and do and be the people we want to be, the freedoms that we cherish." And it kind of saddened me in a bit to recognize that we've come so far from the true meaning of what Memorial Day is all about. And that we have forgotten that we have to remember through storytelling, through history, through remembering those original intentions that when this day began, that we carry that energy forward. We link ourselves back to that moment in time, to the present time. And so I want to share with you all just a little bit of the history of Memorial Day so that we can return to those original roots that founded this day. It was called Decoration Day, and it was originally known then, and it began right around the spring of 1865, actually. The Civil War ended, and it had claimed more lives than any conflict in US history. By the late 1860s, Americans in various towns and cities began holding springtime tributes to the countless deceased soldiers, decorating their graves with flowers, singing hymnals, and reciting prayers. And one of the earliest Memorial Day ceremonies, and this was just recently uncovered, was held by freed Black American slaves. And this happened less than a month after the Confederacy surrendered. It happened in Charleston, South Carolina. And there was a racetrack, and this racetrack was called the Washington Racecourse and Jockey Club. And in the late stages of the Civil War, the Confederates turned it into a makeshift prison for Union POWs. Now, more than 260 Union soldiers died from disease and exposure to the elements at that racetrack right before the war ended. And their bodies were hastily buried in a mass grave and then just left behind the grandstands. Well, when Charleston fell and the Confederates fled, the new freed Black slaves, they remained and they stayed there. And one of the first things they did was to give those Union soldiers a proper burial. They exhumed the bodies and reinterred them in a new cemetery, and had these tall white fences that had these words inscribed on it: "Martyrs of the Racecourse." And then on May 1st, 1865, according to two reports, the New York the New York Tribune and the Charleston Courier, a crowd of 10,000 people, mostly freed slaves, some white missionaries, staged a parade around the track. 3,000 black school children carried bouquets of flowers and sang John Brown's Body. Black Union regiments, even from the famed 54th Massachusetts, were there in attendance. And Black ministers recited verses from the Bible. And all this sources comes from a gentleman named David Blight. He's the professor of American history at Yale University. His book is called Race and Reunion. And then, of course, our Decoration Day didn't really come about until the first Decoration Day was held on May 30th, 1868. General James Garfield spoke at Arlington National Cemetery to 5,000 participants, where they decorated the graves of the 20,000 Civil War soldiers buried there. And then after World War I, after the United States had been involved in another major conflict, the holiday evolved to commemorate American military personnel who died in all wars, which included World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of our ancillary wars that most people don't know about. And it wasn't until 1968 that Congress actually passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which established Memorial Day as the last Monday in May in order to create the 3-day weekend for federal employees, and it also declared it a federal holiday. And that happened in 1971. So that's a history. But we have to live the truth of it. We have to embody it. We have to commemorate. And who better than Abraham Lincoln commemorated this day? Who better exemplified what we are trying to do and what we must do as a nation than in his speech of the Gettysburg Address, when he says, 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you for reminding us the origin and the purpose of this holiday again. and for making it relevant from a particular American holiday after the Civil War to all wars, all times, and all places for all peoples, and how important this day of remembrance is. Thank you. And now we, with great gratitude and honor, turn the program over to Frederick Marks of Warrior Films, who will share some wisdom and some film excerpts from his work on the challenges we face in healing our veterans, achieving homecoming for them, and peace and reunification for all of us. So you're on, Frederick.
Thank you. Well, first, let me say, I'm just so proud and happy and moved to be here today with all of you. Ed is one of my great teachers about veterans issues, and you'll see him and Kate both shortly in one of the films that I've made. Yeah, I've, in typical fashion, I've already learned about 4 or 5 wonderful, useful things from all of you just in the last 40 minutes that we've been here today, not to mention being moved. So I'll just briefly introduce what led me to work on this now 5-film series called Veterans Journey Home. First, I want to say I'm not a veteran myself. My father was a World War II veteran, but like many of us here today, I suppose, my family were pacifists. And I actually grew up from a young age, basically marching in the streets to end the Vietnam War. But cut to many years later, and I was invited to staff a workshop outside of Houston, Texas in 2005. And it was called Vet's Journey Home, and that's where I stole the name from for this series. And it blew my mind, frankly, to experience firsthand that so many veterans could still be carrying so much suffering in such depth 30 or more years after their service. And then to witness firsthand the kind of the healing, the psychic and emotional coming home that they received by virtue of this weekend workshop was transformative for me. So that got me started thinking about veterans issues. And then I started reading Ed's books and many, many others. And so in the last 3 years, I pulled that project off the shelf, and what originally began as a single film that was going to be a 2-hour documentary witnessing some of the journey of a number of different veterans going through, for lack of a better term, what we might call healing processes and being transformed themselves. Actually grew into what is now a 5-film series. So, and I realize at some level that what I'm doing, in effect, is manifesting what I've learned, which is to say that at its absolute base level, what I've learned is that what most veterans most need on their return is compassionate witnessing, is simply to be witnessed and to be able to share whatever it is they want to share from their wartime experiences or even from boot camp, and to be non-judgmentally witnessed by citizenry. So in my own small way, I've done that with these films. I've witnessed amazing journeys of a wonderful array of very, very different kinds of veterans, most of them from Iraq and Afghanistan, because I did want the series to focus more on younger returning veterans. So anyway, with that, let me now share with you a 5-minute scene from the middle of a film called Ben's Story. They're all called Veterans Journey Home. They have a subtitle that makes them uniquely different. This is Ben's Story. And this is just a scene where he visits one of his veteran buddies, and they talk about some of what it is that they've experienced since their return. And you'll recognize immediately some extremely common issues among various veterans, suicide, and also just the difficulties of transitioning into a new meaningful life post-service. So I'll bear with me now, and I'll get that on the screen here.
Fuck. That's not the secret Knox, Ben.
Oh, it's good to see
You
you.
brought beer. You're such a good house guest.
Of course, my man.
So you want to drop your shit and start drinking beer?
I like the boomstick.
That's the best movie ever.
Maybe. Good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun. right. I've been working regular, which helps me mentally big time. Like if I don't got enough to do, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
yeah. My ex-wife and I went
Back
all
that one
around.
right up.
Went
You
all
got
around.
married? Did I ever meet your wife? You had dogs.
She got the dog and the divorce. I got to keep my Jeep.
That's lame.
That's what I did. What I did with my second deployment money, sitting out in the parking lot right now.
Yeah. So how you doing?
Went through an intensive therapy weekend. That's the way I've been describing it. You weren't really expected to speak much about what you went through. It was kind of a class. It was more about like a general acceptance of everybody in the room. You're literally drawing things with crayons.
If somebody made me do a trust fall
Well, but bullshit like that.
like that, like making me hug a teddy bear and things like that.
Exactly. Like, there's more hugs at this than you can handle.
You remember that fat kid in second platoon, the one with the glasses, the thick ass glasses? Like he lost his mind. He went home, put on his full like shit, waving his rifle around, and shit went down, and then they killed him.
The cops shot him.
Yeah, it was like a suicide by cop type thing. Remember that dude Manriquez?
Yeah.
He aced himself. He aced himself in the barracks while we were sitting there, while all of us were there. And then his platoon had to clean up the room. Remember Johnson?
He killed himself.
Yep.
That's rough.
Mm-hmm. We lost more dudes to their own hand than we did to enemy action.
What part of country are you in?
Helmand. Helmand. They
So-
make movies about going to Helmand,
That's no joke.
right? Like, and we lost 2 guys there. You know how many bullets I fired? None. I just wanted to kill some people, and it seemed like this a good place.
It was the time.
We had more people tap out of a deployment, quit, and go home.
Quitters.
Yeah, that we had casualties. And then we come home and we lost dudes to suicide.
You just lose your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go through those stages, but it happens so frequently that you can't allow yourself to be, you can't let it drag your own mental state down.
No. You gotta press on. I get it. It's like this. You go from there to here,
Right.
and there's like no transition. They expect you to go from fighting for your life or whatever, or being prepared to fight for your life, to coming home and being like, well, your taxes are due in 3 weeks, so we got to handle that right now. And then you're like, and then your wife's like, hey, it's great to see you. Let's go home and barbecue things. And you're like, how do you, I don't know. I haven't been able to do it all the time.
Like there's reintegration training, or there's there's.
I didn't have any reintegration training. I feel like when you come home from a deployment, you should be on a year-long profile, right, where you're required to go to counseling or something like that, or
Minimum.
Yeah.
1 year stabilization. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves as a group to not.
show weakness. It's been built in from day one. If you need help with something, you have a weakness. If you have a weakness, then you're a problem. I saw people getting blown to smithereens. Literally, itty bitty chunks of dude.
Yeah.
All over the place. I saw Jimmy die. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. There was nothing any of us could have done to stop it. It was circumstance. We told you it was going to happen and you broke under pressure. I get it. I was part of the problem. I believe that if somebody broke under pressure, they were weak. I'm still bitter about it.
Okay, I'm sure you all have lots of questions and comments about that scene. It brings up so much. And I think we'll have time, if I'm not mistaken, to take some of those. But before we go there, I do feel a kind of an urgency to press on. And I'd like to share with you now the shortest film of the 5 in the series called Solutions. And I realized halfway through making these 5 films that I really needed to make one short film which basically lays out all of the basic ideas behind all 5 of the films. So this is that film. And again, it features Kate and Ed and so many other wisdom carriers from this tradition of veterans' journey home. And I hope that it kind of lays out the philosophical underpinning of so much of what we experience of the journeys of these veterans in the other films. So let me share with that with you now.
Most of the veterans coming home today have a lot of the symptoms of PTSD. What they're coming home with is normal for anyone who's been in a war zone.
What we call post-traumatic stress disorder today can best be conceptualized as a failed rite of passage. Military service itself is a rite of passage. Youths are taken out of the culture. The civilian identity is taken apart. Their heads are shaved. Their personalities are broken down. And then the military replaces it with a military mindset and all of the practices necessary for soldiering and also for killing. And through this intensive training and through the ordeals of military service and combat, they are transformed from thinking about me, myself, what I want, what I need, what gratifies me, to putting the me aside and entering into the collective we, where we serve the greater good. Family, friends, neighbors, the society. And then we tell people, now it's time to go home, you're done, find your way home, and it's all on you. You're released, run home to your family, and make it in civilian culture. That is essentially abandoning the initiate in the middle of his rite of passage. We don't give them the ingredients to complete the initiation and to rehumanize them after the dehumanizing experiences of both training and deployment.
You've been impacted to the point where you look at life differently. You've had experiences that the average citizen has never had, yet you're expected to assimilate back into the current culture as if your wartime experience has never happened.
It's very difficult for someone who has had so much of their life be structured to come back into a world where there's so many choices and so much going on. It's physically and emotionally overwhelming.
So the question is not so much do they have diagnosable PTSD, but that they do have some traumatic experiences that they have to process in some way. They can't just go home and believe that they'll be able to resume their life as usual.
If they can engineer me one way to fulfill this job, that means we can also reverse engineer you the other way. It's totally possible to do.
Not to have any process that helps veterans to reintegrate themselves in society and society to welcome back the veterans is very dangerous across cultures and across different times in history. Warriors could not go right back into society as if nothing had happened, and they have to do a particular process, a ritual, spiritual process, so they could be reintegrated with the rest of their tribe.
The wounds we call PTSD and moral injury. They're in the Bible, they're in ancient Greek and Roman literature. The indigenous cultures of the world knew all these wounds, but they didn't call them psychological disorders and throw meds at them. They called them spiritual wounds that everybody was responsible for.
Purification after battle is some sort of human universal. It's ideally done by the whole community.
It's all of us recognizing that we have a role to play in honoring these troops. And it's not just accolades, and it's not just parades, and it's not just memorials. It's in terms of seeing that they really get the support and help that they need.
It's not just decompression, it's to construct a community of meaning for what they've just been through. The path to recovery is through communalization of the trauma.
They acted on behalf of a country of people. And so when that country says, yes, we'll help hold that, that becomes very important because now they're no longer isolated. It's no longer valueless, worthless. Why did I do that? And it's like, oh yeah, it does matter. And there is gratitude for that.
If you're just present and really respectful and wanting to hear what people want to share, and then you're really listening, that's a gift we can offer. There's so much hunger to be witnessed, to be seen and heard for what their own authentic experience is. And I've been so touched by what I've learned from veterans. That brings me to tears.
We civilians need to listen and try to learn what they experience and what they learned in the process about what it means to be human.
There's a lot of shame, often connected with things that go along with war and the military. and actions that are against core value systems for many. And so forgiving themselves can sometimes be very, very difficult.
If you learn to reframe your experiences in a positive light, there may actually be benefits to be gained from that trauma. So they're not necessarily negative experiences, but they're experiences that are necessary given where you were and what you were charged to do. But now you're no longer in that place physically or mentally, and now we need to get you to a point where you can find enjoyment in life again.
Even as we hold the space for people to touch trauma and touch really painful things, connected to that is the capacity to touch joy.
It's an entirely different experience when it's a whole community, a whole group of people, veterans and civilians, who are saying, we hold you, we love you, unconditionally we love you. We hear what you did, we understand the circumstance of what you did, and we see your innocence, and we see who you are at the core of your being, and we love you and we care about you. That's what helps to heal that trauma. And that's where they can begin to experience the joy again.
This is an Eskimo ritual. When two members in an Eskimo village really don't like each other anymore and they're trying to hurt each other, the entire village gets together and makes a big circle and puts the two antagonists in the middle. And the village says to them, you're not leaving until this violence is all spent. And there's no secrets. The whole village knows these two had it out for each other and why. And the whole village knows that all the violence is dissipated and it's over.
The best way to conceive of the work we do as healers is that we become initiators, trying to help them complete the journey that had been cut off.
A lot of the therapists and counselors, many of them don't have a clue, sadly, about what it means to take the hand of a vet and walk back into the experience of war, of combat, and feel that pain. We train therapists not to go there. They're to maintain their distance. That's not what happens in this work. We go there. And I'll tell them, I'll walk with you into the darkness, and I promise you I'll bring you back out.
The image of the professional as a blank screen who has no reactions is a disaster. If you feel like crying, weep. The veterans will not reject you and scorn you for that. They will regard you as really being there.
Cognitive behavioral therapy revolves around reframing experiences. Say, for instance, in the case of feeling guilty that they didn't do enough to protect a person, helping them understand that there wasn't anything they could have done that would have protected that person. When that convoy got hit with RPGs, it was beyond their control. They couldn't have evaded the attack, and it wasn't their fault that their comrade died, and that you're going to honor your comrade by the way that you live the rest of your life.
Only after going through this rite of return, this rite of passage, to mark the transition from the time of service as a warrior to re-entry into community, after this war detox, after this spiritual cleansing, these service members contain gifts, contain wisdom, absolutely paramount to the long-term survival and sustainability of the community at large.
So it's not so much that you are going to live in the past as it is that you're going to use the past to shape a future into one that can have more benefit to others around you.
We can heal PTSD, and through love and proper concern and caring human relationship, we can heal and come home together. And even the most alienated and wounded of us can be healed.
Service members struggling through their transition back home no longer have a mission.
Working a 40-hour work week doesn't seem of value. Sitting at a desk pushing paper doesn't have the same importance as defending your country.
Not being able to answer the questions, who am I? What is my purpose? And what gifts do I have to share with my community after service is a very, very dark place.
The consumer society that we are the 140 different types of toothpaste in the grocery store is crazy making for the vets for multiple different reasons. One of them is I put my life on the line so that you can be greedy and have all this stuff and all these things and not care about other people. I cared enough to do this. How can you not care about each other? That is a factor in how the vets choose to live their lives and dropping out of society, and some to the extent of homelessness by choice.
The number one question I ask veterans when they're getting out is, hey, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And the number one answer is, man, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. They don't even know what their purpose they're going to fill for the rest of their life is. So they're going to depart an organization where they had purpose and trust and friendship. They're going to be told they're broken on the way out the door, and they're going to be stuck in a foreign environment in which they don't know what they're going to do for the rest of their lives.
When they come out and they do programs like Healing Warrior Hearts, we talk with them a bit. We don't give them a mission, so to speak, but we say, you know, what are you going to do now?
Service members are very mission-oriented because that's part of their training as well. It's an important and positive learned behavior that can benefit society in a number of ways, and it can help them feel that they are really helping to make a difference.
I work with homeless veterans. So that's my mission. And I could sleep well at night knowing that I'm making a difference. So in many ways, there are a lot of parallels between my current mission and the mission I had while serving in the Marine Corps. I am serving my community. I no longer struggle with suicidal thoughts.
I want to educate every woman in Afghanistan. Well, how many women is that? Well, by our basic math, it's 3.1 million women. Am I going to be able to educate 3.1 million women in my lifetime? Probably not. But I'm going to put a decent dent in it, and I'm going to be satisfied with that.
My biggest wish for veterans is that we create a whole national system of reverse boot camps, and we spend as much time bringing people home in isolation with all kinds of cultural and community-based and spiritual and ritual support and reprogramming, rehumanizing, proof that we can heal even our deepest human wounds through human means.
I hope that every single man and woman who has ever served in uniform, who's ever initiated into service on behalf of our nation, has an opportunity and is provided a clear pathway to a program so that they can war detox, so that they can spiritually cleanse, so that they can reclaim their whole self. That's my hope.
While things are so difficult outside in the streets around the world now, this work gives me great hope, really great hope. We can transcend and heal the worst pains that we've caused ourselves and each other.
I'm sorry.
Well, it was an interesting challenge for me to try to distill about 15 years of accumulated learnings into 15 minutes. That was my attempt. So that's pretty much all I have to say and share. I don't know if we do have time to hear your comments and questions, but I'm certainly open to them if we do.
Thank you, Frederick, very much for witness and testimony and education. I'd say we have about 10 minutes so we can share comments, questions, responses before we move on and go into more experiential work where everybody will get involved in our activities. So for now, I think you have control over your own mute, so you can either raise your hand to speak or use the hand icon and let us know you'd like to share. Yeah, Tommy, speak to us. Kate, you're still on mute. You need to unmute when you're going to speak. That's the lower, the little microphone icon in the lower left-hand corner. I think you're good now, Tommy. Nope, you were. Tommy, you're still muted. You want to try to speak?
How
That's
about,
it.
is that better?
Good. Yes, you're with us. Good.
Okay, one question, I missed the name of the lady that was, I guess, talking for Healing Warriors Hearts. Could somebody tell me what her name was, please?
Her name is Patricia Clayson, and the organization is based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your contribution. I know way too little about the younger vets. Any information, especially that profound, is helpful. Thank you very much.
Anybody else wish to share with our larger group right now? Robert, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm a war veteran as well. I'm with another friend of mine that used to be in my old platoon, and there's another one walking around here somewhere. The observations and the acknowledgement of the nuances is just incredibly heartening. This is the sort of thing that we don't see anywhere near as often as we need to, and it's certainly not something that like we as veterans hear enough. Just the attempt of it is extraordinary. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. That's all. Yeah, cheers.
Frank, I think Frank wants to say something.
Robert, and your brother's with you. Yeah, thank you.
Frank, I think Frank Hood wants to say something. And it's so good to see him. You have to unmute, Frank.
Not yet, Frank. Lower left-hand corner, microphone picture.
Maybe Fia, can you help Frank Hood unmute?
I can't actually unmute him. He has to do it, but I've sent him an ask to unmute sign that he can click on. I'll send it again.
While Frank is working to get on with us, Robert, to you and your brothers, thank you for joining us and for your comments. Hey, brother, bless you. It is so important that civilians get it, and get the complexity and the nuances and the challenges and how the issues go on and on and on and on and pervade every corner of life. It's not mental illness. It's transformation, utter transformation into a different warrior identity that needs to be recognized and honored and embraced as you are, as different, and as continuing to serve us in the new identity. So I grieve with you and apologize to you and your whole generation that there are so few of us who really are devoted to getting it and being at one with you. Very glad you're here, and we have to do this together.
I want to just briefly echo what Ed just said. You know, I am very circumspect when I even use the term healing modality, you know, to talk about returning veterans, because I don't see veterans as the problem. I see society as the problem.
Right.
The problem is we don't know how to receive these people. We have forgotten how to receive all of you who are veterans who are coming back. So the problem lies with us. And that's what one of the great objectives I hold with this series of films is to proverbially slap citizens across the face and say, wake up to your responsibility to these returning men and women, and be available to sit and witness whatever it is that they want to share with you about their experience, because we owe them that.
Right.
Yeah, do you mind if I add to that just a little bit? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, please. I mean, from my perspective, please.
All right, cheers. I didn't have anyone. What was it? Sebastian Younger was talking about how when people say thank you for your service, it releases enough oxytocin or serotonin or whatever it is. It's a check in the box so they no longer have to dive in. And in doing so, also put those veterans into their own socially recognized stigma. So the idea of broaching these conversations, of having the civilians be enabled, I guess, to give them agency to approach the veterans and have the veterans comfortable enough to reciprocate is not simply paramount, but you're a catalyst for it. So, cheers.
Great. Thank you, Robert.
I think Frank has unmuted.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Frank.
Okay. I hit things until I finally unmuted, but it's good to see y'all. Yeah, back at you. And it's such a good thing you're doing still. You know, I came out of Vietnam way back, what, 50 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I ran a small reconnaissance outfit there. And I had good fortune as far as what the war did to me, but I thought I'd gotten off scot-free. And I found Ed, or Ed found me, maybe 5 or 6 years after I returned. Oh, more than that. 10, 12. And I'm in my late 80s now, and that's affected me quite a bit. But anyway, I got a lot from Ed. And one of the things I found out was that even though I thought I'd gotten off scot-free, if you serve in the military, even if you don't go to war, it affects you deeply. And I was much more affected by it than I thought. And I was lucky I didn't lose any of my people. We did all our active warring at somewhere between 25 and 35,000 feet. So we were kind of disconnected from what we were doing, and we weren't shooting at anybody. One of the hardest things, conclusions for me to arrive at was that if you were putting your energy into what you were doing, no matter whether it had to do with being a cook and baker, or having something direct to do with the fighting, but you were still complicit in the killing that was going on. And the effect was deep. Anyway, thanks for letting me come sit with you on this auspicious day. And love you all. Just simply love you all. And good luck taking care of yourselves. And a lot of your good luck will come from sitting with other people that know what you've been through. And know the broad effect that has. See y'all. I'm going to mute again.
Thank you, Frank.
Frank, it was lovely to hear you say that, and it's just lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. And I suspect that Frank is, I'm not sure, I hope I'm not insulting anyone else. Frank may be our elder warrior in residence today. Frank's wisdom. Dave, if you're in your 90s, I apologize. Or anybody else. But it is so important that we have elder warriors with us. And not only that you testify to your challenging journey home and what's worked, but also that you give us guidance and blessings for our ongoing efforts in doing this work for all generations, and that we unite transgenerationally over these concerns. We have family members here, we have parents here, we have warriors from Vietnam to the present. And this is so important. We're coming together in a microcosm of our nation. And we need to keep doing this until everybody gets it. So thank you all. David wanted to speak, and then we'll ask you to hold your comments and questions for now, and we'll move on into more experiential matters that will include everybody. So David, you want to share?
Thank you. Yes, just a couple of thoughts. Someone commented, I think it was Robert, commented about people coming in and saying thank you for your service. and to this day, that just blows my mind. I can't deal with that. It's not negative. It's just, I did that. That was me. That was, and I appreciate the sincerity, but I question the sincerity. Somebody commented about getting off scot-free. 50 years ago, I left Vietnam. This past Monday, I just had my fourth Agent Orange cancer surgery. And I'm working on more. So, you know, it follows you. I did a speech when I came out of college during my first tour in service in the Army. And you had to give a hostile speech. So I spoke for universal service because I truly believe that people have to pay back their country. They have to do something. I don't care if it's in the military or you're in a hospital or a youth camp or CCC, whatever. And of course, it was immediately, I got an A on the speech, but the rest of the class booed. And then the other thought I had was that even though it's 50 years, I totally agree with this concept of the reverse boot camp. That would be fantastic. I can remember getting off a plane in San Francisco, going to a restroom, changing out of my uniform, and getting on a plane to fly to Denver to see my sister. And we had been told this is not going to be a good flight. Do not be in uniform. And it hurt coming back to your country after a year, having somebody say that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and welcome home again. Welcome home again. That's what I say. Just welcome home. Our veterans who have all testified again remind us how traumatic homecoming is when it's not done correctly. And our movie reminds us that we all know this, we should know this, more suicides upon homecoming or not serving than actual combat deaths. Suicide is more deadly than combat now. More of our people are killing themselves than are actually killed in battle. So what does that say about the way we're taking care of our warriors and their families? We're not. For those who don't know my books, I've redubbed PTSD in two ways. Post-traumatic soul distress. It's not just a stress disorder with our nervous system and our brains broken. It's soul distress. Everything about us is challenged and changed and disturbed and needs attention. And social disorder. As Frederick said, veterans, you're not the problem. Society is the problem that doesn't get it, that doesn't want to get it, that just tries to say thank you for your service and leave me alone. We all have to be involved. It is a social disorder that afflicts every one of us, and we're all wounded by it until we all get together in common community and concern and practice over these issues. And that's what we're doing here today together. So thank you all. And Kate, we turn it over to you to lead us into commemoration time.
I'm going to read a piece now that is something that's an adaptation that Ed did of a work by James Hillman. It's James Hillman, from James Hillman's The Force of Character. And when I finished, we're going to play In Flanders Fields. And while we're doing that, I would like each of you to hold up whatever memorabilia, photographs, whatever you may have that you want to show the group. But we'll do that while we're playing In Flanders Fields. And then I invite you also at that point to go on your gallery view so that you can see the others and what they're holding. So we can share in that way. Okay. Commemoration. We gather to commemorate. We lay wreaths and place flowers for people and events that left a mark. The past lies under graves, buried. But the memory of these in our soul history keeps their values alive. Our character consolidates when we commemorate matters of value. We must remember beautiful, courageous, honorable events. We must recall the clarity of a decision or the cost of a sacrifice. Today, we commemorate our inheritance from those who taught us or simply were glad to serve us. When we commemorate together, we need less public praise. We depend less on others for recognition. We hold our own victory parades. We award our own medals of honor. Whom do you honor today and why? You need your mute, hon. Unmute.
Thank you. Let us all share a virtual wall. I'll play Flanders Fields, and please, everybody, scroll through the gallery, take your time seeing each of your sisters or brothers who have gathered today and who we are memorializing on this holy day. Many of us, probably all of us, carry more names, more memories, more faces in our hearts and souls than we can possibly mention today. And in addition to memorializing all those who have been wounded or fallen from war, we're also in our global pandemic. We have been for a year and a half now, and literally hundreds of thousands, millions of people have fallen from this all around the world. So now is our time to take a moment of silence. Please recall your loved ones you are remembering today, family members, friends, battle buddies in service, lives you even took on the other side, anybody you need to remember and pray for today. And also remember all of those who have fallen or continue to suffer from the pandemic that we're all in, because this is a world war. We are in a world war with the world system falling apart and so many people trying to hold it together while so many other people are caught in the apocalypse. So let's pray together for a minute of silence, giving our utmost love and concern, trying to pull together our broken pieces and become one again. Amen. Thank you all. One of the things that we need to do that is so hard to do is to say goodbye and let go of our past wounds and struggles and of our loved ones who are on the other side. So we have some time for all of us to share now. In a moment, we're going to break out into smaller breakout rooms so everybody will have a chance to share. Kate, you have a poem called Letting Go that will lead us into our letting go ritual. Whoops. You're muted.
Thank you. Okay. So a long time ago, I used to work for hospice. I was a hospice social worker. And it was long before Soldier's Heart, long before we were doing this work so intensively. But I met a man who was on hospice, and his name was Charlie, and he was a veteran of World War II. And this is dedicated to him. And it's called Letting Go of Charlie. You are not just another name on a list. You are more than a pile of papers lined up in the drawer. My pen stumbles as I write the last report. No room on the final form for the life you lived. For the young soldier home from the war, the father, the gardener, the carpenter, the storyteller. No box that says friend. Nothing to tell of those whose lives you blessed over and over again. My throat grows tight and the questions blur as I circle the simple questions. The do not tell of the love and the loyalty and the loss. Goodbye, dear man. Goodbye. And so now I invite you all into the breakout rooms where we will each have an opportunity to share about who it is that we're commemorating today and a little bit about their life and how they've touched ours. So I think Fia will now break us.
Okay. Welcome back all, and I hope everybody had a few minutes to get yourself and your stories into our small community and our larger community. I wish we had more time. At some years, as you know, we gather in person like this, and we did many times at Row and had days to immerse ourselves into this work together. We look forward to doing that again in the future. We still have small, committed and caring community here with open hearts and open minds. So we are coming together this way, and we want to continue that. So we'd like one volunteer from each of the small groups to just spend a few minutes to share what was of most importance that your group shared and that you take away. Put it into our large community so we all are carrying the love and the wisdom that each small group has conjured. So I was group 4. Who was group 1, and do you have a volunteer? We can let's start with group 4 because we know who's doing it. Robert, would you mind beginning with sharing for our small group for large community?
Honestly, I'm honored to have the chance to. The depth and breadth of what it is that we covered was really quite extraordinary. I think about a lot of our healing, both I mean, from what I got from it, our healing both as individuals and as a society needs to happen without a recurring prejudgment, whether that be the issues that they have had to suffer with through or have inflicted upon people, or potentially the fatal aspects of dealing with the weight of these things. The efforts put forward by the nature of them are noble. And because we are all individuals, to strive to know one another on a personal basis is a noble act. I think is close. Yeah. Though it's never going to be 100%, which is part of our individual growth. I believe it was, I think Floyd said that we are all, we're each individual pieces of wheat in the Elysian fields, and should recognize one another as such. I could go on, I guess, but.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And I hope we all carry that, to really know each other, to make the effort to silence the noise inside and really know and witness each other is a noble act. Thank you for that. And it's true. And any warriors looking for a noble cause after service, that's a great one, to really, truly know your brothers and sisters and all of us out here and the wounds we carry in common. Thank you, Rob. Okay, now group 1, whoever you were, will one of you from group 1 share your group?
I don't know what group we were. What I know is that we had a veteran, and we had children of veterans. We had a wife of a veteran, and we had a mother of someone who's currently serving. So it was an interesting group. Pete, would you be willing to give a little summary about what we talked about?
You're muted.
Yeah, I think the most moving part for me was hearing the grief from a different perspective than just other vets, which is what I'm most used to. And it was just it was very humbling to hear Mariah for the first time. First of all, telling about her brother. I think we all have to just dig deeply and acknowledge the power of sharing this stuff with each other, of opening our hearts. And to hear Jennifer still grieving over her husband, whom she lost a long time ago, and how it's still right there, even though it was maybe 15, 16 years ago, I think, with Jennifer. And also just the courage for, I forgot your first name, but you were Steinheiser is your last name, who was in our group. I forgot her first name. This is sort of one of her coming out time. She's very introverted. She says it's very difficult for her to socialize, and she doesn't have a very strong support system. So I was just moved by her courage to come and seek this healing for what she's going through with her son, who's in the Navy. And I think she said I couldn't remember if he was a helicopter pilot or if he was on a submarine. She talked a lot about submarines, so I guess he's a submariner. And how much, fear and sadness she has about him. And so this is a huge step for her. And I'm always honored when people talk from their hearts like that. So I hope I did justice to all these wonderful people who shared themselves. And Kate did not have very much time, unfortunately, to talk about her father, but I've heard her talk about him many times before, and I hope you have a chance to tell you a story about after he came back to Hiroshima.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. That was good.
Okay. Charlie, your group?
Yeah, I think that, does anybody in our group want to say anything before I start? Barbara, did you want to say anything, or Karen? Well, I'll share the group. Wow, the heart, the openness, people sharing from the depths of themselves, stories that I had never heard before, of people that were very close. And you don't realize how much our war injuries, how they affect us. And we had veterans from Vietnam and honoring the Korean War and all the way to the present day, and healers who love them, who are doing everything that they can to bring alternative ways to bring healing to them through acupuncture, and the openness and the sincerity and genuineness of wanting to really hold space to enact that deep
soulful work and healing that is necessary for veterans to return. Memorializing the children who have been lost and hurt and wounded by this. Shay brought it up. And the stories that, you know, can be lifted from people if we just listen. If we just listen, if we just take the time to give of our time. And it was really meaningful. I mean, everyone was really, they're here for the reasons we all are here for. And that's to remember, to mourn, to grieve, and to strengthen our souls so that we can carry those memories forward and revitalize and regenerate and reestablish and reawaken the nobility of the warrior spirit here in our country. It was an honor to be the facilitator for our little group.
Amen. Thank you, Charlie. And we have one more small group, Frederick's group, I believe. Anybody willing to share from your group?
I'd love to hear from anyone who was there. If we had a facilitator, I don't know who it was.
Well, I'll speak up a little bit. Since it's my first time on doing this, so I guess people can hear me. Yes.
Yes, Tommy.
It's a much more diverse community than I'm used to dealing with, which is certainly not a bad thing. And I had always hoped in dealing with these issues that we could diverge out of the realm of the actual military experiences, and that because speaking personally, much of the heartbreak that I encountered, my own personal heartbreak, had to do with my community and my civilian community. And I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of heartbreak that I suffered within the first 2 or 3 days of my return. So speaking with Chris and hearing, and hearing those experiences with family, about family, and talking with, is it Frederick, the filmmaker?
Yes.
And Frederick, the work that he's doing, and Gail, she came in at last, and for Frederick and Gail, and particularly, I want to thank them for their caregiving. I've been thanking the people that have been helping me at the VA lately for their service, and I'm going to change that to caregiving. I do want to comment. There's other comments I want to make outside of the break room, but and I'm not sure how to do that. It was one of the it was one of the greatest breakthroughs in my recovery as far as it goes, to be able to do that in a forum that I encountered in Soldier's Heart. You might have heard of that. And I'm eternally grateful for that. And I found it difficult. I wish it wasn't so difficult to communicate that gratitude outside of the veterans community with people, with my family and other members, the other few members I have left in community. And I do want to say that I want to continue. Somebody asked me questions, and Frederick asked me to speak to him about certain things. These things don't go away. I'll try to speak to the question he asked me that I couldn't answer at the time, but and I'll try to make it as short as possible. Do I have a couple minutes? And the thing is that when I went into the service, I did it against the wishes of my parents, who, to my great fortune, are both still alive. And for a great part, I'm still, what life I can still experience is because they are there. They're great people. But I believed in a time and a word that's grown obsolete about obligation to our country. And I was considered myself a patriot, and to my great dismay, I was a Goldwater supporter at the time. And I decided that I was being unfair to the advantage that my parents had offered me about college. And I decided I was going to do what I could. I was going to go in the military to try get some self-discipline, and also to protect the Constitution, which I thought a great deal of, and the freedoms that was afforded to us. I served on the Iron Curtain for a year. Went to Vietnam. Fortunately, I had the year in Germany to help. It helped in the sense that I had more training. Most of the young people I served with. But by the time I left, I was looking for. I was still hoping for something that resembled what I had. Was I consider an illusion now about honor and war. But when I joined, just before I joined the Army, I tried to get some counseling because I had all of these issues with not being good enough to student and all that rigmarole. And I got into a huge and a very divisive argument with my father. And next day I went down and joined the Army for 4 years. And the point I'm getting to is to answer Frederick's question. I had the most intense argument with him 3 days ago. Since then, and it concerned not just the attitudes that I came home with from the Vietnam and the military, but also the way that we were treated as a peace vet by the police. And he thinks that it's okay that no matter what even if I haven't done anything to he thinks that it's okay it's okay that no matter if I've done anything or not, that it's okay for the police to treat me like a criminal. So I'm back at a point where I'm back at a point where I was 50 years ago, alienated from my father, who I loved deeply. That was a question that I was asked in a room that I wanted to clarify, and I thought it was okay to share with the group. But I want to thank the caregivers, including Frederick, the filmmaker, and Gail, and extend my sorrow and comradeship to the others who share pain about loss and things and those things. Thank you for letting me speak so long and share and being here. Thank everybody.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Tommy, and welcome home always. We all need to do so much with the sorrows, memories that we share. Those of you who are in Vietnam remember the horrible adage that in all of our pain you were reduced to when you said it don't mean nothing. Somebody's killed next to you and you say it don't mean nothing. We kill other people and we say it don't mean nothing. And horribly, tragically, some of our younger vets in the sandbox wars, Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere, are also saying it don't mean nothing. And they're singing I feel like I'm fixing to die rag, except they're substitute Afghanistan for Vietnam. But it's the same song, and the same pain and despair is being caused so many of our young people as well as our older folks. So we have to, it can't mean nothing. It can't mean nothing. And if we feel like it didn't mean nothing in the war zone when it happened, we have to return transcendent meaning to these losses. We can't tolerate such pain and emptiness and loss without meaning. That's what will drive us all to suicide. So we're making meaning. And we have to make meaning afterwards for what happened in the past and to project us forward into the future. In a moment, Kate's going to lead us in a meaning-making meditation. But to help us enter into that, I want to briefly tell a story and then share a poem from our journeys back to Vietnam. For those who don't know, I've been leading healing and reconciliation journeys back to Vietnam since the year 2000. So every year since then. And so I've been there about 20 times and I've had more than my year in country, brothers. Thank you. I earned my stripes too. And Cade, my beloved partner, has co-led 10 journeys back with me. We meet with Vietnamese veterans. We sit in talking circle with Vietnamese people, their veterans and their civilians. I want to honor everybody who's here, who's returned. Tommy, we went back together, and Vela, and Frank, and Colleen. We've all been back to Vietnam on one trip or another together. And I know Pete and anybody else have been back on your own? Pete has been back on his own. Anyway, some of us have been back and we have practiced this type of ceremonial healing and reconciliation and truth-telling together with the Vietnamese. And I won't go into it now, but you do need to know there is no chronic wartime post-traumatic stress disorder in Vietnam the way we have it. And that's proof that it is possible for a culture to be so aligned and unified during the war effort and afterwards and do everything properly, communally and socially and spiritually, such that this wound does not manifest and does not appear at epidemic proportions in the population. The Vietnamese, if it were only the bombs falling and only what we did to each other in combat, the Vietnamese everybody in Vietnam would have PTSD and moral injury. We dropped more bombs on Vietnam in that war than in the whole world in World War II combined. And what do you know? They don't have broken brains. So how's this possible? They have everything communally and spiritually in place to take care of each other. So this is possible. And there are world examples of coming through even worse horror than we've been through and healing the nation. So when we meet with the Vietnamese, our Vietnamese counterparts, and they become sisters and brothers in Vietnam, we exchange whatever wisdom we've learned from the war experience and from healing. And every year we met with an elder who's known as Mr. Tiger, was his nickname. His name was Nguyen Tham Ho. And Mr. Tiger was at war, literally in combat for 25 years. He was never even in the military. He was militia. He lived in the Mekong Delta. So he was Viet Minh and Viet Cong. He went to war like the Minutemen went to war here. He wasn't being paid for it. He was just trying to defend his homeland, his village, his people. So he fought the Japanese and the French and us Americans, and he welcomed us with a huge smile and a big open heart and lots of hugs and hosting us and sharing and talking. Well, one trip, one of our really tired, hurting Marines asked Mr. Tiger, how is it that you don't suffer survivor's guilt? You've been at war for 25 years. You lost so many people all during that quarter century and all the 3 wars you fought in. And the war was here. You lost civilians and relatives also. How do you not feel survivor's guilt? And Mr. Tiger said, oh, my brother, I am sad but not guilty. I invite you to not feel guilty, to not feel survivor's guilt, but just let yourself feel your sorrow. Perhaps, Mr. Tiger said, perhaps the bullet is the messenger of karma. Learn to see our lives through the point of view of the bullet. What does that mean? That was his lesson to us, to see from the point of view of the bullet. So I wrote this poem called Point of View, and this leads us into meaning making. Point of view. From the point of view of the bullet, one will live, one will die. From the point of view of a man, my life is his death. From the point of view of the bullet, you took the right step, he the wrong. From the point of view of a man, his death should have been mine. From the point of view of the bullet, fate is a swift, straight shot. From the point of view of a man, fate is a fickle whore. From the point of view of the bullet, I am the servant of destiny. From the point of view of a man, destiny is a greedy whore. From the point of view of the bullet, his destiny was complete. From the point of view of a man, he left me to live for 2, or 3, or 10, or 20. From the point of view of the bullet, you survived to finish your mission. From the point of view of a man, I wish I had died instead. From the point of view of the bullet, your service was not your mission. From the point of view of the man, my time in hell was enough. From the point of view of the bullet, life wants more from you. From the point of view of a man, tell me what I must do. From the point of view of the bullet, live for all who died. From the point of view of a man, too many lamenting ghosts. From the point of view of the bullet, their voices are now your voice. From the point of view of the man, Their voices are now my voice. Kate, please lead us into meditation for meaning making. Muted.
I'm putting this on gallery because I don't want to just talk to myself when I do this. So, from the point of view of the man, okay, from our point of view, how do we make meaning? So I'm just going to do a very brief meditation with you all. So just sit back, get comfortable. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, that's fine. If not, maybe just gaze at the floor below you. Get into a comfortable spot, get into a comfortable position, and really let yourself sink down into whatever you're sitting on. Take a couple of nice cleansing breaths. Let yourself sink some more into your seat, knowing that underneath your seat is a floor and floorboards and maybe a basement. And below that is the earth, is Mother Earth, holding it all up, holding you up. And let yourself just feel being held by Mother Earth. And feel all of that good, rich, fertile energy of Mother Earth coming up through there into you. With each breath, pull it more and more inside. And from above, feel the energy of Father Sky coming down from the universal, from all the forces above us, bringing with it all of the wisdom of the ages to sit with us, and breathe that down to the top of your head. And let Mother Earth and Father Sky mingle together inside of you. And slowly begin to imagine yourself in a sacred spot, a special place of your very own. Maybe a place you've been to before, or maybe a place in your imagination, or a place you'd like to go. And see what that feels like. Look around. Notice the textures, the colors, the smells. And in this place, you know that you are going to invite and see and be with your loved one who has lost, who is gone, who is no longer with us on this earth. But they can be with us anywhere in our hearts and in our spirits and in our souls. And so let yourself now be with your loved one, the one who's gone now, whose life you loved and whose life you mourn now. Let them come alive to you. Look in their eyes, see their skin, hear their voices. And with them, you tell them or you ask them, how in the world are you going to be able to go on and carry on your life with them in it? How can you give meaning to their loss, How do you give meaning to the lives they led? What's one thing you could do today or in the near future? Something to commemorate and to make meaning from the loss that you've experienced from them. Maybe it's to plant a tree in their name or to give a donation to something in their name. Maybe build a monument of some sort or a place where kids can play. Something that's life-giving. But you look at yourself and ask yourself, and you talk to them and you ask them, and see if you can have a dialogue about what would be most meaningful, what would be the best legacy for them. When you're ready, you can thank this person for coming to you. Thank them for the wisdom and the chance to be together just for this moment, knowing that there can be many more. And then say goodbye. And watch them leave. And then you turn yourself and come back to this group, back to the room you're in, and back to our gathering.
We know that many, probably all of you, do good works in your corner of the world and do good works in honor and memory of these fallen that we're honoring today. It is traditional to pass the plate at sacred service, and so we do that as well today. Everybody, I believe, had paid a very modest registration fee for today's workshop. Thank you all for that. And we do want to let you know that Kate, Charlie, and I, and others of us who are involved in Soldier's Heart, our nonprofit, have been running charity and philanthropic works to help veterans for decades now. Our nonprofit Soldier's Heart is closed, but we're still doing our charity work. So the fee you pay today, half of it goes to Row, which is a nonprofit center to help support their important programs, this and others. And the other half is, we're not getting anything for today. This is our loving service to all of you and to the meaning of this day. And so whatever monies come in go into our Veteran Scholarship Fund. That is an ongoing project, and we keep it, and we use it to bring veterans who can't afford it to retreats in person when we are able to run them, and that will happen again soon. Also to bring veterans back to Vietnam or to Greece for our healing journeys there. And we also continue to do charitable projects in Vietnam. So if any of you are so moved, I'll put my mailing address in the chat. We do have 2 projects going on now. We have an ongoing Veteran Scholarship Fund, and we don't take anything for this. These are our gifts of love. So every penny you give, even if you just want to buy a vet a cup of coffee and want to send us $5 for it, that $5 is going to buy a vet a cup of coffee. So we have a Veteran Scholarship Fund, and we also presently have what we're calling the Mother Pig Project. We have adopted a rural village about 40 clicks outside of Da Nang in Vietnam. It's quite destitute from ongoing war damage and from the pandemic and from extreme poverty. And so for the last couple of months, we've been running a project where we've been supplying pregnant mother pigs to the neediest families there. We've already supplied 24 of their families with mother pigs who will all have babies over the next 6 or 8 months, and they'll be able to start family-based husbandry industries to raise pigs and feed their families and sell the pigs for income. And this is enough. They could never afford the $300 that it costs. For some of these families, they don't even make that as an annual income. But with a pig, they can make enough money to create a small husbandry business to support their family. So we're continue to be engaged with that village, buying pigs for the needy families. So if anybody would like to donate to either of these projects, we're open and grateful and receptive. And there are other nonprofits represented here. Frederick's Warrior Films organization is also nonprofit and needs support. Costs a lot of money, incredible hard work to make a movie, folks. So, and Frederick's movies are very humanistic and loving and help bring the world together. And I know there are others represented. So you can put any information you have about a nonprofit you're involved in the chat as well. So everybody can find you for the support you're giving and mail you donations if they're so moved. So that is our Pass the Plate appeal now. And I wish we could stay together all day for this holiday, but we can't this time, though we will be together again in the future. So again, you're all invited to Frederick's gathering this evening to see film clips and engage in long, deep discussion, ongoing discussion about the meaning of this holiday. And Charlie, and that's 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time for Frederick's event this evening. And now we pass our gathering over to you, Charlie, for closing remarks and a closing prayer.
Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say, if you haven't had enough yet of Ed and Kate and Charlie, you'll have more chances later today at our event. So please join us because, you know, my intention is to turn the floor over as much as possible to them so that we can all receive more of their learnings and wisdom. Thank you.
Charlie, before you get started, would you, I've had this message that's been banging at my teeth for about half an hour now. So I'll try to keep it short. One of the veterans that I worked with yesterday, who is his career Navy, and was on a ship helping evacuate Saigon. And then 30 years after that, in all of his different. Anyway, at some point during that time, he had sort of blow up within him an ability to see ghosts. And a lot of his life has been struggling with trying to learn how to allow that, not how to. We had a session together a few years ago, and I saw one of the ghosts. It was one of his buddies. So we have conversations every now and again about, like, so you're having a hard time figuring this out. What does Charlie want you to do? And apparently he says, Charlie's just basically hitting me up on the back of the head to say, why didn't I ask? So his big struggle around Memorial Day is remembering, and what he feels honor bound to do with remembering. So we worked together on that, and I said to him that I saw hordes of soldiers standing in front of him, which he then could also see. And I said, so why don't you ask them what they want you to do? And he said, I made an oath to never forget. And when he asked this crowd of what he was supposed to do, he just whispered this answer. They said, you're doing enough. And the reason this has become this is so powerful to pass this on, I think, is that whenever we feel called to service, which I think everybody is, it always
seems that it needs to be a big service, a big job. I have to save the country. I have to be president. I have to, you know. And in fact, it's not. It's a very small thing. He's not walking around town saying to everybody, do you remember Charlie? Do you remember this person? Do you remember this person? Do you remember this person? He's remembering them. And that's enough. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Karen. To you, Charlie.
Yes, thank you, Karen. And I just, I want to, before we close this sacred time together, I do want to do a quick shout out to some of the people that I know that came here specifically. Robert Layup and his organization is an outstanding organization. It's called Bullets and Band-Aids. They are post 9/11 Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that are doing and wanting to do and knowing this community work that we have been doing for so long, and they are pushing the next generation. He's going to be joining me on the radio show next month, and he's going to be at the Gathering of Warriors. Also want to make a quick announcement for the Gathering of Warriors next month on June 24th. We're going to be having a special guest on there. Her name is Linda Tai. She is a trauma therapist. Her story is incredible. She is one of the Vietnamese boat people that left Vietnam right after we left, and her family was directly impacted by the consequences and the aftermath of the war. And she was had to flee Vietnam. And her story, I think, is so extraordinarily powerful. I want to invite all of you to come. It's from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time on June 24th. It's free. And for all of our veterans, I think it's going to be really, really powerful. So, okay. I have a beautiful book that I want to close out with the prayer for our gathering today. It was given to me by, I hope you remember this, Pete. You gave it to me back in 2014 when we went to Greece together. And we were, when I look back at those times, Pete and Barbara and and Ed and Kate, when we went, I was a very different and wounded man. And you gave me this book. And I would like to read a prayer that comes from this that is specifically for Memorial Day. So thank you for this book, Pete. Spirit of life, whom we have called by many names in thanksgiving and in anguish. Bless the poets and those who mourn. Send peace for the soldiers who did not make the wars, but whom lives were consumed by them. Let strong trees grow above graves far from home. Breathe through the arms of their branches. The earth will swallow your tears while the dead sing, no more, never again, remember me. For the wounded ones and those who receive them back, let there be someone ready when the memories come, when the scars pull and the buried metal moves, and forgiveness for those of us who were not there for our ignorance. And in us, veterans in a forest of 1,000 fallen promises, let new leaves of protest grow on our stumps. Give us courage to answer the cry of humanity's pain. And with our bare hands, out of full hearts, with all our intelligence, let us create the peace.
Several of you requested mailing lists. We are asking Roe to compile a FIA, who's representing Roe and helping us. Thank you, FIA. We'll ask Ro to compile a mailing list as well as the chat list. The recording will be available, and we will try to get everybody mailing list as well, including a list of all the nonprofits that were represented in our circle tonight. Stay in solidarity with each other, with your communities, with everybody around the world who shares and suffers this wound, and let's keep going together. We don't have this recorded. We invite everybody to unmute yourselves, and together, doesn't matter how harsh it sounds to our ears, let's sing the opening verse of Amazing Grace together to close down this service, but to never close down our love, our work, our devotion to each other and to world peace and healing. Thank you all. Thank you all so much for today.
Amen.
So somebody else should start the singing, or else if I started, you're going to be all having your
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but am found. But now I see.
We needed comic relief after our service.
It's a hit.
That's a hit, right?
Bless you. Thank you. Carry everything with love and with meaning and with hope for rebuilding a future of all of us as one.
Blessed be.
Be still.
See you soon.
Thank you all.